A word bank is basically like a group of words that you'd like to use, that you resonate with, that you would actually say in real life as well. So, and then normally you also then put in words that you'd never say either, that don't connect with your brand, and kind of use that as a bit of a reference point whenever you're writing copy. Look at the kind of words that really tell your brand voice and your, brand story. And then conversely, don't use words that don't reflect your brand, or that you wouldn't say in real life as a person either.
Hi, I'm Beth, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5. And I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues podcast. And this week I am joined by the lovely Hayley Griffiths from Hayley G Studios. Hi Hayley.
Hi Beth, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me. So I always like to start by asking, what can you see out your window today?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I've definitely listened to your podcast a lot, and I really love all the chats that you've had with your guests so far. Today, out my window, I'm working from home, and I can see some trees, some beautiful trees. What else? We're on like an escarpment on a hill. So yeah, mainly the tree line and a bit of the backyard as well.
Oh, beautiful. So for those of you who don't know Hayley, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Hayley's work because she has worked with so many interior designers, Hayley is a copywriter. And I would love to know a little bit about your business, how you got started, and how do you do what you do?
Yeah, well, I actually did a communication and media degree, and I double majored in marketing and public relations, and then I went into retail marketing, so marketing for large shopping centers, and I did that for about seven years. And it was actually after maternity leave with my first child, Sophie. I wasn't offered any flexibility, which I think is a story a lot of us can relate to. It was basically either full-time or nothing, and I didn't want to go back to full-time with a 1-year-old, and this was also pre-COVID, so working from home wasn't really a thing back then, so it would have also had to be in the office. So I decided not to go back into corporate, into that role, and someone actually suggested to me, why don't you try freelancing? So I started Hayley G Creative, and to be honest, at first I was offering a bit of everything, because I'd done a lot of digital marketing as well as content writing. So, I was offering social media management and website management and all the things. And then I started to niche down into copywriting and content writing because that's what I actually really enjoyed doing. And also I found like the demand was really there for it as well. And also my mum is a journalist and a sub-editor and all of that. So I feel like I kind of grew up in the world of writing anyway. And it naturally evolved from there. In between all of this, there was obviously COVID, and then I had my second child, Max, as well. And then it was probably 2 to 3 years ago where I really went, right, I really want to focus on my business. And I started to get quite a few projects with interior designers and interior stylists, and that's just, I kind of created a bit of a niche out of that. I really like, it's a personal interest of mine as well. So
I was going to say, do you like interior design? Like, is it something where you kind of like it? Because I can't imagine it's easy to write for something that you don't enjoy.
Well, I love it. Like, I was always the person, and I still am, who gets, all the home magazines every month and saving things on Pinterest for what I'd love my home to look like, in a few years when the kids are a bit older. So it's always been something that I've really been interested in. And so I was, super thrilled when that became a bit of a niche of mine. And and here we are today. Obviously, lots of hard work later.
Oh, that's so awesome. It's such a common story, but I always love hearing it, that kind of junction when you finish up maternity leave, and it's kind of like where it's so often the point where people really start thinking about what they want, and like what success means for them and how they want to live their lives kind of thing. I always love hearing. It can be so daunting when you're in it.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm doing this with usually like a 1-year-old, and it's like, oh, okay, can I do a 1-year-old in a new business and learn kind of two skills at the same time, like parenting and running a small business? So I love hearing about stories where people are like, 6-7 years down the road, and it's like, it worked. It was crazy, but it worked.
Exactly. Like, it was, definitely a learning curve. I'd obviously never run a business before, but I feel like with experience, you learn what works, what doesn't work. I also got a mentor, Kate Adamo, and she has also been really amazing to help set up those foundations in my business. And just, a lot of coffee, hard work and juggling, but it's definitely been worth it.
Yeah. So one thing that I'd love to know. So one of the things as an interior designer, I always struggled with when I was in the early days of my business. So I started the Navy Edit Studio when my son was 6 months old. And one of the things that I've always struggled with is interior design. You kind of, especially when you're in kind of even if you're documenting or if you're in concept, you need those long stretches of time to be creative and just go with the flow kind of thing. And a working parent doesn't usually have those long stretches of time. You need to become really, really good at doing stuff in 5-minute chunks. How was that something that you had to kind of learn how to do, or is writing a little bit more flexible in that regard? Or how did you manage that kind of change to how you work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, to be honest, some days I do find it really hard just to turn on the switch and start writing really creatively. So I definitely feel like, some days it does just seem to flow easier. Naturally, I do find writing fairly easy, but I do have those days, if I've had a rough night's sleep, if Max has woken me up a few times or woken up super early, first of all, I go get a coffee and that kind of wakes me up. Or sometimes even I find, scrolling Pinterest or just reading some magazines or something like that, just to get me a bit more in the zone of that kind of creative writing. But I've really learned to compartmentalize between work and kids. To be honest, I cannot write when the kids are around. It's just too distracting, and I really need complete silence as well. So I try to work out my days where I'm going to be, and then try to really have some deep work where it's a few hours of really deep work and just focus on writing. And then, if I'm working from a co-working space, and I might do more of those admin tasks and, invoicing and things like that. But I've had to really, write when I'm at work and when the kids are at preschool and school, and then when they're home, obviously focused on them, and, I can write emails and check things like that, but I can't really do any deep writing work during there. So
I find that so interesting, because I think there's kind of we all have these ideal weeks that we want to live out the way we'd like our week to roll out kind of thing. But so often the working mum or the working parent, it's more like, okay, I have this amount of time and I have this work that I need to do. It is far from ideal, but I'm going to have to like I've got to get it to work kind of thing. And also like creatively, like you kind of like, okay, I don't have time. I always remember like pre-kids, I would be like, I got to go for a walk. I got to have like my breakfast. I'll have coffee. I'll get into the zone kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like, I've got to get into this. I've got 5 seconds. Like, right, we've got to go kind of thing.
Exactly.
So I think that is such an adjustment to that whole, like, working mum, small business owner, like, creative industry kind of.
Definitely.
Like
yeah. And I've had to kind of, you know, like, do a couple of hours here, and then I might, you know, go get the kids, and then I might have to log in at night again and then finish off, you know, a page of a website or something like that. So it's not that like beautiful like 8 hours of deep writing. It's kind of like squeezing in bits of time where I can.
The juggle is real. So interior designers are obviously very, very visual people, and the product that we produce is a very visual thing. But so often we need good words to go with it to tell the story. The pictures really only do so much. We need good copy to go with it to really kind of show our future clients the transformation that we can create to a space. What are some key things that people should be thinking about when they're thinking about the copy to go with their imagery?
Yeah, so there's definitely a few things that I'd recommend. Firstly, I always say sell the emotion first and then the service second. So really consider storytelling in your writing. So, you know, consider how the space that you've transformed, consider how it will make someone feel, you know, take them on a journey. So tell the story behind the design, you know, what was it about? Was it about solving a challenge, or, you know, creating a specific aesthetic or, you know, atmosphere? And I think it's also really good to weave in the actual client's lifestyle as well. So, you know, weave in how the design has improved your clients' lives as well. So, you know, what has it done to their everyday lives as well, in the transformation. So yeah, I really think that storytelling is key, and just really being able to speak emotionally, so people can actually feel what the space would be like if they were in it. And, you know, obviously you can also talk about specific design elements as well. So, and I guess your reasoning why, as you know, behind your decisions, I think that's really important to talk about as well.
And it's so much that it's appealing to people's emotions, isn't it?
Yes.
It's that you really just want to kind of pull at their heartstrings, you know, for that cliched saying. But sometimes as well, though, finding the balance between, and I'm not a great writer at all. It's not something it does not come easily to me at all, and I always struggle with it. And I always find it interesting when you're reading copy and it's kind of like they've thrown in like 3 or 4 big descriptive words, and it's like, oh my goodness, like just tone it down a bit. Finding that balance between being emotive and telling a story, and language not being particularly like overly flowery, but also making sure it sounds like you, I think is hard to get right.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a delicate balance between the two. Like, obviously, when you're writing your copy, you still want to sound, you know, professional, you know, showcase your expertise, and obviously appeal to potential clients, and, you know, all of that, but then still inject a bit of that authenticity as well. So it's definitely a juggle, but I do think that it's really important, you know, particularly in like social media copy and website copy, to really think about connection and relatability while also showcasing the value that you bring as an interior designer. Like, obviously it's a really competitive landscape. There's so many interior designers and, you know, interior stylists out there. So you really need to think, why would someone choose you over someone else? And when people are reading, you know, your about page on a website or your social media posts, I feel like it's such a personal thing, interior design, that they really need to feel like they can connect to you and that you share the same values. So I always recommend, you know, to my clients to showcase a bit of your uniqueness and what makes you unique, that people can go, oh, amazing, like I can really connect with them, and I love their approach and I love their values, you know, whether, you know, you care about sustainability or you know, it could be all different things, but infusing that in there as well, I think is super important. So making sure that when you're writing copy, like it still needs to be conversational and approachable, I feel, but obviously have that mix of a little bit of personality, but still that high level of expertise in there.
I think as well, one of the best tips that I was ever given was to like record, like a voice note or something, record what you want to say, like speak it out. Like I find it much easier to do that and then like to have a transcript and that's your starting point. Like so often the hardest thing is just starting, like once you kind of get that.
Yes.
But I find that, I mean, I do that so often where I'm kind of like, I have no idea where to start kind of thing. So I'll start kind of just speaking it, and then kind of that gives me the foundations for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I also, another bit of a tool is to create a word bank as well. And that's, you know, something that anyone can do and that I've done for myself and I do for my clients. So a word bank is basically like a group of words that you'd like to use, that you resonate with, you know, that you would actually say in real life as well. So, and then normally you also then put in words that you'd never say either, that don't connect with your brand, and kind of use that as a bit of a reference point whenever you're writing copy. So, you know, look at the kind of words that really tell your brand voice and your, you know, brand story, and then conversely don't use words that don't reflect your brand or that you wouldn't say in real life as a person either. So that's super helpful. I have a little download freebie on my website as well, so I can share that too, but it just gives some really good prompts.
Definitely.
Give some really good prompts.
That's so helpful. I've heard about people talking about word banks before, but it's more about like the words you would use. I've never really heard people say about don't use, because I think so often, I always find it funny when you know someone in real life and then you see them on social media and they're even like, there's a video or even just their thing. And I'm like, that does not sound like you. Like, you're using words you would never use in real life. And I'm kind of like, I think sometimes I wonder if that is because it's been spat out by like AI, like captions and all that kind of stuff. But I find that really interesting. It's like having those words that you would never use, like it gives you a bit of a sense check to go, actually, I would never say babe or whatever kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then talking about AI, it's another tool. Like I think it's a great tool. Like I use it a little bit as well to kind of get started, like sometimes. How do you think, like how is a good way to use AI when it comes to copy?
Yeah, I agree. Like I think honestly, like embrace ChatGPT, and I feel like, you know, for small business owners, it's an absolutely fantastic tool. And like you said, use it as a starting point. So it can be really good for like ideation. So, you know, you might want to come up with some ideas for blog posts or, you know, maybe an email newsletter or captions. And it can just be really good for giving you those starting ideas and points. But then I always recommend, obviously, to then tweak it, edit whatever it spits out at you, because you know, it is quite vanilla and quite generic. So you then need to go and edit it and put in a bit of your own tone of voice, your personality, make sure that it speaks to your ideal audience. So yeah,
I suppose that's where those word banks, both negative and positive, are such a great tool, because then you've kind of got like an easy comparison of what you would and wouldn't say.
Yeah, you've got a really good, you know, basis. And then I also find word banks really useful if you're going to outsource anything. So, for instance, you might decide to get a VA to write your social media captions, or something like that, someone else in your business, or someone who might be like the studio manager doing all the client communications, and then you can also give them the word bank as a reference as well, so they can refer to that too.
Yeah, awesome. And then, like, what are some of the things that you think, like, what are some of the things you see designers struggling with their copy?
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of people don't like to put the spotlight on themselves, and they don't like to talk about themselves either, which is completely understandable. And I think a lot of interior designers that I've worked particularly find like the about page, of a website quite difficult. They don't know how to speak about themselves in a way that doesn't sound cheesy, or so that's kind of, a bit of a challenge that I find they face. And also, I guess, how also to make themselves stand out from others. So I think that's when you can really pull into like some more personal things, like, really talking about your signature design style if you have one. You can also talk about your process as well as an interior designer, because that can also set you apart from others. And even just things that are less related but still relevant to potential clients, like, talk about where you source your inspiration from. Like, is it traveling, or being in nature, or maybe you explore antique stores on the weekends, or and also talk about potentially like some go-to furniture or homeware brands. That kind of, it all still relates to interior design, but it just gives people a bit of an insight into who you are as a person, and how you work with clients as well, because again, it's about that connection. And I even like to talk about what are their interests outside of their business, because that again forms that relatability between clients, potential clients looking who to design from, really building that trust and approachability is what I help them with, because people don't like to talk about themselves generally.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, it's interesting that you talked about the relatability and like the potential clients getting to know you a little bit about the copy, through the copy. It doesn't mean that you have to share all your personal details. Like, you can still be relatable and approachable and show a side of yourself to the client without having to, talk about the dog and the cat and the three kids and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where really good copy helps, because it's kind of like you don't actually have to say a lot to express a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, I really love that. That's so true. And obviously, you can share as much or as little as you want, but it's just infusing those little bits and pieces throughout your copy while still being really professional, and even just showing a bit more about how you work as well. Like, I think that's so important too. And whether you have a team, who you work with, are you a sole trader, or do you have a studio with different team members? And I even recommend putting in a photo of any staff members as well, and even just a short little bio, with some interesting things about themselves and also their role, like, just so people know who they're talking to throughout the design process and the different touch points as well.
Yeah, that's so, so important. So one of the things that we've talked about kind of, I suppose, how copy can really help us show our clients who we are, and support our beautiful imagery. But one of the things that I think copy can also do is really help us with our systems and processes, but really make sure that the systems and processes work well. So, like, for example, in an email, being around like, oh, it would be great if you could do this, kind of like, and making it like not setting firm guidelines and all of that kind of stuff. So how can where like if you write it properly, it can still be very polite, it can still be kind of very professional, but it's setting boundaries for the client, which is what they need. What are some of the things that you think what are some of the areas that you think copy can help us in really enhancing our systems and processes so that they are watertight?
Yeah, good question, and it's something that I actually help a lot of clients with. So to me, I think having a consistent tone of voice across all customer touch points is so important. So, not just thinking that the website and social media are your only touch points, actually looking further into like your onboarding system. So any emails that customers receive from you, your service guides, investment guides, welcome guides, all of those are all customer touch points. So I feel like having well-written copy across all of those areas really, I think, sets a clear, I guess, really enhances your brand and kind of has that professional sense about it, and really, I feel like people know, okay, I know who I'm talking to. It's the same person across all these different touch points. So it really enhances your overall brand and their customer experience as well.
I think as well, one of the things that it was interesting you were talking about all of those documents. So often I see designers and they'll call something one thing in like the investment guide, and then they'll call the same thing something slightly different in the fee proposal, and they'll call it something different again, maybe in their process document. And so often I'm like, your part of your job, especially in that pre-client phase, is to educate the client about all this terminology because it might be new to them. So you got to make sure it's consistent. Like that's one of the big things. I'm like, you want to be using the same copy across all of your documents.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like you really, I think, well-written copy across all those touch points, like it sets really clear expectations for the clients and helps to like you said, really educate them on the process, because it is such a lengthy, detailed process. And, I think it prevents that miscommunication or confusion later on if you've really set out, your process, your deliverables, your timelines really consistently, and you've called it all the same thing, you've, across all those touch points. I think it really avoids any confusion down the track, and that's, obviously can cause a lot of stress and problems. So I feel like, yeah, it's so invaluable, and it also really, establishes trust in your business. Like clients reading it know this person, this studio, they really know their stuff, they know their process. I feel comfortable investing a lot of money in them because I know I'm going to receive amazing customer service and get what I've been promised as well.
Yeah. And I suppose that's something that is really easy for designers to do without having to engage like a copywriter if they're just kind of wanting to kind of start looking at this stuff. Like just do a bit of an audit of your documents and go, do I say the same thing? Do I call a concept design in everything, or do I call it something else? Like just kind of that audit of your documents is such a great place to start, and I'm sure you'll discover there's a lot of other stuff you need.
Yeah, I think I love that idea, and I think even having email templates, just having a set template for common client inquiries, or those standard project updates that that you'll need to send throughout a project, just having a template which you can obviously then personalize with their names and details, but it really like reduces the risk of sending unclear instructions or poorly worded responses. Like you've got it ready to go and it's in your tone of voice and it addresses those key points every time. So I recommend even doing that as a really good starting point as well.
Yeah, and I think as well, like I love a template. Like I've got so many like template documents that I'll just copy and paste into the email body, because I think as well, one, it saves you so much time. but also like it saves you mental energy, because I'm like, oh, what do I need to write to that difficult client? Like, it's just can really help your workflow, but it just kind of makes it so much easier. And also I think if you're not writing an email, I don't know, say it's a cranky client, like writing an email response in kind of the heat of the moment, or when you've got that emotional kind of energy tied up with it, it can be really hard. And quite often people read them back and go, oh, that wasn't quite right. So I think so often doing all of these email templates as much as possible as you can, you kind of, before you need them, it means that you're going to put together a much more considered response that you're most probably a lot happier with.
Yeah, exactly. That is so true. And I also, another thing that I thought of as well is that, really well written, engaging copy, like in the sale process where you're, sending a service guide, or you're sending through an inquiry, reply email to an inquiry, it can obviously then actually get them across the line as well. There's nothing worse than a potential client looking to invest a lot of money into, for home renovation or something, and then getting an email, and a service guide with spelling mistakes and, and not reflecting that sense of like professionalism that you would expect, and that could be the difference between someone, signing up with you or going somewhere else as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it all counts kind of thing. And I think the other thing that is so helpful when you have this stuff all done, and like particularly in the pre-client stage when you are trying to convince someone to work with you, and you're in salesperson mode, I think having it all set and you go, okay, I need to send this email at this time, I just need to copy that email template and put it in kind of thing. It just means that you're able to get back to people faster. You're removing a couple of steps that you need to do each time kind of thing. So I just think, yeah, it just really does help the whole process.
Yeah, like I recently got Dubsado set up for my own business, and I've helped other clients as well write all their emails within their systems like Dubsado, and it's like almost like a set and forget in a way, which like has freed up so much of my mental time. Just knowing that I know that they're going to get these set emails, and they'll be sent at the right time, and they're all, worded in the right tone of voice, and they speak to the key points that I need, clients to actually do. And I feel like it just, it frees up a lot of time and just makes that client experience so much smoother, and more professional as well.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Oh, my goodness. I could talk about copy. It's so funny. It's something that I don't love doing, but I know the difference good copy makes to all of your documents and all that.
Yeah, because I think often words are the last people, is the last thing people read before they actually, click buy or, click, to submit an inquiry. It's actually the words. And, obviously visuals are absolutely beautiful. And I think the two go hand in hand, but I feel like, without good copy, the website just doesn't work hard enough to really, drive action. So, it's amazing what good copy can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Hayley, what are you looking forward to in the next 12 months in your business?
Yeah. There's some really exciting client projects in the works, which can't reveal too much details on yet, but a few of them are for some brands that I actually really love and really admire. So I'm kind of in the midst of a few of those big projects. I've also just signed up to a group mentoring program. Prue Chapman's, she has this RISE program, and that's kicking off in February next year. So I'm actually, I'm really excited to be able to start the new year, the working year, with that mentorship, and really, continue to refine my business even further and learn from her and other people as well. And definitely also looking forward to taking off some time over Christmas. It was my daughter's first year of school this year, and my son started preschool this year, so it'll be nice to celebrate and wrap up some of those milestones, and hopefully get in plenty of those beach days and nice weather as well.
Sounds lovely. Oh, sounds like a very, very exciting 12 months that you've got ahead.
Yes, I can't wait. So yeah, watch this space.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hayley. I have loved our chat, and I hope everyone feels a bit more inspired about their copy.
Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.